All right, coaches, today we're going to continue in our series of You Want to Be a Head Football Coach. And today we're going to talk about one of the most controversial parts about being a head football coach, and that's recruiting. Stay tuned. All right, coaches, welcome back to the 92 Meshgroup channel, your home on the internet for the air raid offense. And today we're continuing our You Want to Be a Head Football Coach series. Today we're going to talk about recruiting 101. Question mark. Is there really a primer for being a recruiting person as a head football coach? And you know, I tweeted something out last night just to kind of get a gauge of what people thought about it. I said something really unpopular. I was like, you know, hey, look, if you're a head football coach and you're letting your parents and your kids do all their highlights and handling all their recruiting, then I don't think you're doing your job. And boy, did the internet blow up. I mean, there have been more likes, retweets, hash marks. I mean, you take it, it was all over the place, you know, guys with just differing opinions and things like that. So you can only just believe how, how this issue just divides people. And I just say this, I really feel like that sometimes you got to leave the stuff to professionals. And we as coaches, if you don't see yourself as a professional, then you're not really doing yourself a service. So let's talk about it a little bit. So what I did is I put together a quick video about how I think the recruiting process should go and how it's gone for me over the few years. I mean, a lot of you guys know I was a head coach for over 10 years. I worked at the college level, you know, I've gotten, a bunch of guys in school and things like that. And I can tell you that I can remember sitting in my office with VHS tapes, stacked up like crazy. I'm old enough to do that, but 6 and 7 VCRs. Matter of fact, in the comments down below, if you remember having 6 VCRs stacked on top of each other in your office, give me an old school in the comments, because those were the days, weren't they? And how hard it used to be to pause and make highlight tapes and things like that. So hats off to all those old school coaches who did all that work back in the day to get their kids in school with those VHS tapes and even before, because that was really work compared to what we have to do with the technology that we have. So recruiting really is the reason why many of us are loved for 3.5 years. Most of our kids who are really good players, they love us. Their parents love us. Their moms do all the booster club stuff. They're serving pregame meals. The dads are working the chains or helping line the practice fields or grilling for the team and doing all this other stuff. And then all of a sudden, they hate us. And you're trying to figure out why. And I've thought about it for a long time. I was like, how can these people love me for so much, and then all of a sudden they hate you? And it's because at the very beginning of the relationship, you weren't honest. It's one of those things where you just have to be honest with parents and players about what they can expect, and let them control the result, but what they can expect from you in particular, and what you can and cannot control. Because I can tell you, I've never given a scholarship as a high school football coach. I've recommended kids. I've told guys, I would sign them. Matter of fact, I tweeted out last night about a kid that I love and adore. He's one of the best running backs in the state of North Carolina. He played safety for me. If my daughter was looking for a kid to date, he would be the kind of kid I would want her to date, because, his books are great. Athletic ability is great, but, I can't give that kid a scholarship, but I can recommend him to anybody who will listen. And that's what I've done. But you have to take the proper steps early, and it can save you from being that 3.5-year boyfriend and then not making it to graduation. Because what's going to happen is those parents are going to hate you when their kid doesn't go to State U or wherever, or win all the games, Tech or whatever university it is that they had their mind on, because you weren't honest with them about the process. So you got to take those proper steps early, and it can save you from having, a really negative relationship with parents at the end, because they're going to blame you. And if you've ever had a parent blame you for something like that, in the comments down below, tell us the story so we all can learn from this. Have a process in place and articulate it. I can't stress this enough that you have to do this early. I can remember when I first took over at Red Springs, there was a mama and she really wanted her son to do this. And they were, she wanted to call these people and these people and these people. And bless her heart, she had no clue. She didn't know what to do. And I finally looked at her and I said, ma'am, either you're going to let me handle this or you're going to handle this. If you want to do the recruiting piece, I will let you do it. But I said, but we're going to end up working against each other. And that's not the way to do it. You got to have a process in place where everybody knows what everybody else is doing. And if you got one person pulling and another person pushing, one thing I can tell you as a college coach, the last thing you want is drama. And if you have an overbearing parent calling you daily about a kid, and then that kid's head coach isn't even recommending that kid, you think they're going to pay attention to that kid? No, that's a red flag real fast. And so, you have to have that process, articulate to your parents and do it. Knowledge is the key. They need to understand, every school has X amount of scholarships. Every school has, Hawaii, matter of fact, Matt Mummy out in Nevada, we were looking at a quarterback. A buddy of mine had a quarterback that he wanted, to look at. So I let Matt look at him and I said, hey, Matt, what do you think about this kid? And he said, hey, it's great. He said, I just don't know if we'll be able to go all the way across the country to recruit that kid. And that's just how it is. Some programs are national based programs, the Alabamas of the world, they'll go to Alaska and recruit a kid. They don't care. But, some of the non-Power 5 schools aren't going to recruit a kid from all the way across the country a lot of times because, what if that kid's not happy? They've spent X amount of dollars, doing all this stuff to get this kid here. And then he's so far away from home and it's just really tough. And so you have to have knowledge, what are these programs looking at? What are the NCAA eligibility requirements? Where are your exposure camps, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all these parents, they get these letters all the time. Hey, come to the Australia Bowl where we'll have, 47 coaches, there to evaluate your son and then pay $2,500 to do it. And then, inevitably you'll see a GoFundMe on the internet for some kid trying to raise money to go to that camp. And we all know that the odds of kids coming out of those kind of things with opportunities at colleges are few and far between. So, you have to be able to be there to protect your kid. And more importantly, that's one of the biggest reasons why I think you as a head coach have to be in charge of this recruiting process. It's not that your parents don't know what they're doing per se, as much as you need to be able there to protect those kids, the ones that you love, protect your program and make sure that people aren't being taken advantage of. And that's really, really important. So let's jump into this kind of process of what I think should happen. This the freshman year, and I've been doing this for a little bit. And if there's something that I miss in the comments down below, make sure you put down there. If there's something cool that you're doing in recruiting that's helped some of your kids get looked at, let's share it with everybody so we can help out. So looking at that freshman year, you have to begin the eligibility process. I mean, it's called college football, guys. I mean, as much as these kids want to love football, we have to use football as the vehicle for them to be able to go to school. And the one thing that I will tell you is that when I went to the college level, I kind of changed my process on a lot of this stuff. When I was a high school coach, the first time, all I wanted, let's get them in school, get them in school, get them in school, get them in school. But we never talked to them about staying in school. And so now we have to start figuring out what we can do that when we send these kids off to school, they don't come back home. They're not coming home a year later because they didn't do their books or it just wasn't a good fit. We need to make these kids or make them. I don't know that you can make a kid do that, but we need to figure out how to get these kids to fall in love with education again and let them know that football is a vehicle for success. And I mean, I guess if we could figure that out, we could all retire earlier. But I mean, and that may be some utopia-esque, vision of how we need to do things. But really, that's the big deal. Let's get them in school, let them play ball, but let's make sure they get their grades and they stay in school. At the very beginning, kids should understand GPA, core classes, what their requirements are. And don't wait until school's been in for 2 months, because that kid's already carrying 2 C's in world history and biology, and both of those are core classes. We can't do that. You need to get them in there, bring them in preseason, freshman parents meeting, freshman and newcomer parent meeting. Hey, listen, this is how this works. This is what a scholarship is. A scholarship is a 1-year renewable pact between you and a school, and this is how they can take it from you. This is how you get there. Okay. And I can tell you, I can remember having a conversation with a parent one time. The parent was all mad because the kid wasn't eligible for, to go play at a certain school or whatever. And I just kind of looked at him. I said, I really wish you'd have been this pissed off when I was calling you about his American history grade, because that's the reason. And so that's why you have to have this conversation early on in the process. Get your parents involved in the school and make them talk to the teachers. Teachers want parents to come to parent-teacher conferences. I mean, we got to be there anyway, but we're lonely. I mean, we're sitting there looking at YouTube because we have two parents come, in the entire evening, and both of the parents who show up are kids who got, 4.0 GPAs, and that's why they got 4.0 GPAs, because their parents are up there all the time. So, explain to these parents how it works. Let them know what GPA is. Most kids, they go to school in middle school, they go the whole year, they pass their EOG or whatever it is, and then they're promoted to the next grade. Then all of a sudden it becomes a course-based thing instead of a year-based thing. So they have to understand, what are core courses, why some classes are quote unquote more important than others. But explain to these parents how these scholarships work and do that. What's the difference between Division I, Division II, NAIA, JUCO, D3, those kind of things. Parents need to understand that. I mean, you don't sign a scholarship to a Division III school. They give you a package and you work it out. They need to understand what those are. And then lastly, in that freshman year, you need to define your role in the process. What are you going to be there for? Listen, I'm going to be there to help you create your highlight tape. You can flag all your highlights that you want, but before you send them out, you're going to let me look at them. Okay, I'm going to educate you in that process. I'm going to be your marketing agent. I'm going to talk to coaches for you and things like that. One thing I'm never going to do in this process is tell you where to go. Okay, and I think the head coach doesn't need to be involved in that decision. That's a purely family decision. If they ask your opinion, you can give your opinion, but I would strongly suggest that you kind of stay out of the school picking business, because if it goes wrong, they're going to blame you for it. But what is your role in that process? I'm going to stay on top of the kid's grades. I'm going to make sure his core GPA is good, all of these things. And the way I would say it is like this. A lot of guys on Twitter are all pissed off about it, talking about, the parents need to have a role in that. I agree 100%. But it's just like this. When you turn your eligibility into that athletic director, have you checked it? Yes, because good and well that the first person that's going to get fired is the head football coach when somebody's ineligible, not the AD. So you've checked all of them grades and eligibilities and attendances yourself before you turned them into the athletic director. And that's old school, and all the old school coaches, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're not going to trust some secretary to go through and say everything is fine when this is your profession and your livelihood and your good name and all that other good stuff. So, even though you want those kids to take ownership into this process and things like that, you're still going to make sure everything is in order, because when a coach calls you and says, hey, what's Johnny's core GPA, you're not going to look at Johnny and say, hey, Johnny, what's your core GPA so I can I can tell Coach Saban. No, you're going to know off top of your head, because knowledge is power. So define your role in that process early on, what they can expect from you, and then stick to it. Because then by the time they become seniors, they know that you've done everything that you said you were going to do to help them through that process. So by the sophomore year, what happens is you need to be checking that eligibility. Where are they at? How many core classes do they have? What's their core GPA? They have 2 good semesters under their belt now. They should know what their core GPA is, how many core classes they've passed, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Get kids to start thinking about the schools they should be interested in. Everybody wants to go to Alabama. Everybody wants to go to Clemson, so on and forth, LSU, and so on and so forth. But, do these schools even have things that you want to do when you grow up? Start test prepping. This is one of the things that I think a lot of us miss out on, and I think it's a really, really, really good thing to do, is have your kid take a SAT or ACT in the 10th grade. Okay, a lot of times there's waivers available for these kids to do these kind of things, but how much easier is it to tell a kid that he needs to study for something when he's actually taken it and seen what it is he's got to prepare for? And so, there's nothing worse than showing up, your senior year and you've never taken a test. And, North Carolina, every junior takes the ACT. But don't let that be the first time, especially since that's a March test and, spring evals coming in and you're not going to have a test score. So go in there as a sophomore, I would suggest spring of your sophomore year, take a SAT or ACT just to see where you stand. And don't worry about it because, I mean, you can super score everything. And now they're letting you take parts of the ACT, and you can take the English part now and the math part later, or you can just go back and retake one part now. That's coming up next year. So that's going to be really cool. But start test prepping. Take a test. Don't be scared of the test. Take that test, see where you stand. And that's something we as coaches have to push. We have to push. Tell those parents, hey, listen, let's see where Johnny's at. Let's see what we need to do. So that way, when we start talking to tutoring and ACT prepping and things like that, we can have an idea. We can make a data-driven decision about what these kids need to take, so on and so forth. I can't stress that enough. Both of my daughters took tests in 10th grade, and it really helped them when it got time to take the test that they really wanted it to count. Summer camp tours your sophomore year. Go look at some schools that you're thinking about. Go up there, check out some spring games or something. Go to a camp. Go to a 7-on-7 at one of those places. Get on their campus. See what it looks like and do those kind of things during your sophomore year. And a lot of times, if you got a kid, he's a dude, he's probably got good sophomore film and he can go to some one days. But, we're just going to assume that he's not a dude right yet and not do that because there are some guys who go to one days. I do not recommend 3-day camps. I think that's for younger kids. I think for high school level kids, if you're going to a 3-day camp, your daddy must be in the booster club at that school or something like that, because I just don't think that that's for you. I think you'd be better served going to some one days and then spending that summertime, those 3 or 4 days with your high school team. But that's just how I do it. If you see some value in 3-day camps and things like that, let me know why down in the comments. So your junior year, most important year by far. I really do. If you have film and transcripts, by your junior year, that's going to equal offers. It is what it is. Sit down with the coach and parents and have an honest conversation. Now is the time to talk. After your junior season, your kid is second team all conference and the league isn't that great. His measurables aren't as good as what some people have. You never tell a kid what they can't do, but you have to have an honest conversation with them and say, hey, listen, I don't know that, Power 5 is going to be his deal. On that, and look, I'm speaking from facts. I'm a 6-foot offensive lineman. I was recruited by, a bunch of the big schools when I was in high school. Got to go on visits to the places, and they said, "Well, he's 6 foot, and I have a nice day." And that's how I ended up going to FCS, and it had nothing to do with my ability as a player, but it had everything to do with the measurables that I had no control over. Now it's very hard for me as a 17, 18-year-old person to understand. I was very, very angry about that. And matter of fact, the only way I was able ever to get off over it is we went to the Liberty Bowl when I was at East Carolina my first year, and we visited St. Jude's Children's Hospital. And you're sitting in there and watching kids go through cancer and things like that. And then, the fact that you're not 6'4" really isn't that important. And that was a life-changing moment for me. So I understand what it's like to be told that you're not quite as good as you think you are. And we had, 3 guys signed Division I scholarships on my senior year team, and I felt like I was as good as all of them, and I was. But, they were all 6'3", 6'4", and I was 6 foot. It is what it is. So have an honest conversation. You got to be test eligible by spring evaluation period. I can't tell you how hard it is to tell a coach, well, we're waiting on a test score or the GPA isn't right. So you're doing yourself a big disservice by not being ready to roll, by April of your junior year. So you got to be test eligible by your spring evaluation period if you don't want to hurt your recruitment, especially with early signing day now. With early signing day, it's tough. And you think about that. Those coaches come through in April, and then in December, you can sign. So you're talking about, 8 months later, you can sign. So you need to be test eligible. They're not going to wait, very few guys are they going to wait on, and those are the ones that it really didn't matter to begin with because those cats are just super, super special. But, you got to make sure you have your stuff in order, take care of that piece of it. And that's part of having that frank conversation with those parents and say, hey, listen, what I like to do is talk to them at the beginning of their junior year about recruiting, how it's going to work out. Back in the day, I used to do it with my senior parents, but now I don't do that anymore. I do it with junior parents because I think it's the most important time to talk to them about, hey, listen, Johnny's got to have his test score. We got to do whatever we can to get his test score. He's going to have to sign up for these test dates, boom, 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 boom. And, and get him signed up, get him signed up, have him take one in October, have him take one in December, and look at your schedule and, your game schedule and see, make sure it's a home game weekend if you can. And if there's a test and you have a home game, that way the kid's not traveling, not out late, those kind of things. He can take his test and get that done. And then one of the other things that's probably one of the most overlooked things in the world is you need to be in tip-top shape the first week of June. I mean, it's money time on the one-day circuit that first week of June. I mean, those cats, have $30, will travel, and don't be in the meat market, man. Don't go up there and just be that cat. Or I'm gonna play basketball, get in shape playing basketball. I'm not gonna run. I'm not gonna be in straight shape and all those other things. And then when I go to my one day, I run a 4.7 when I can run a 4.5 in my sleep. I had a wide receiver that happened to, and he went to a basketball camp and shoot. The basketball coach told him don't even come to the camp because he knew he had to go run. And he's like, nah, coach, I can do it. He goes up there. We take him to the one day. He runs 4.7. And the kid ain't never ran a 4.7 in his life. He'll be 35 and run 4.5. I mean, the kid could go, but it hurt him. And so, be in shape when you go to these camps. Don't just take your kids up to these camps because, you're taking them to camp. If they're not in shape, don't let them run. It's what the pros do, but you got to have them in shape. So in your spring practice time, make sure you're working on those kind of skill development things. And a lot of us are doing, and most of you guys probably do a much better job than that. So I'm probably preaching to the choir. So by the time the senior year runs around, if you've done everything you're supposed to, have fun, take visits, make a decision if you're lucky. But if you're not, keep working, researching, be honest with yourself, start taking some other looks. And I mean, how many times have you seen college coaches all over Twitter talking about, hey, don't spend your time chasing after somebody who doesn't want you. There's good ball at all levels. And that's the truth. I mean, I spent a lot of time at AFCA talking to a bunch of JUCO guys and different guys, and they all talk the same stuff, there's a place to play for everybody. The early sign-up period has changed the game. That's why most of you cats, if you haven't gotten offered by the start of your senior year by a Power 5, it's probably not going to happen. And I'm not the end all be all on that kind of thing. I don't want to be the crusher of dreams or anything like that. But I talked to a guy last night on the phone. I was trying to talk to him to see what they had left, and he said, man, we got 2 Scallies left right now. And that they've already filled up on pre-signing day, and they're already looking at 21s and 22s, and they're a Power 5 school, and it's just that's how it works. So the calendar's different a little bit. And you have to make your players understand this. And this is the mantra that I've used since probably my first day as a head coach, and I'll probably use it until my last day coaching, and that's division-free, FREE. Listen, there's nothing wrong with playing ball at an NAIA school. There's nothing wrong with playing ball at a smaller school if those schools are fits and they don't put you in financial jeopardy. And I think that's important. I mean, a lot of times, these kids, you got to understand, the better your academics, the cheaper your school will be. These Division III schools and stuff like that, they can put you a huge package together, but you got to see how much loans you're going to have to take. But if you go in there with big time grades and stuff like that, they're going to give you academic money. And so then you can look at it and say, well, if I go to this D3 school, is it cheaper for me to go to the D3 school on my package than it is to be maybe walk on at this Division II school and try to earn a scholarship and it'd be about the same price? So you have to give parents those kind of that kind of information. And this is why it's important that the head coach is involved in the recruiting process, because parents, all they want to do is go to the school and go to the bookstore and buy a shirt that says, Methodist dad, and those kind of things when you take your kid to campus and stuff like that. And they're just so excited to go back to work and tell them, that Johnny's going to be playing at the university or wherever. And then at the end of the day, they look at it and say, man, this really isn't the best financial decision for me and my family. But, my kid wants to play ball. And you have to be able to be honest with them about that and understand that. And if you've done the right things through the process, you won't be that 3.5-year guy, because they'll understand and they will see that you've busted your butt to help them do the best you could. And hey, like I said, know what you're getting. Packages can be gifts or bombs. I saw a kid's package one time. He came home. He was so excited from a visit to a smaller school, and he came in, and his mom was like, "Yeah, they offered him a full ride." And I was like, "Well, what do you mean they've offered him a full ride?" And I knew that was the trigger term, because it was a Division III school. I said, what do you mean? Well, she showed me the package, and see, we don't have to pay any money. And I said, well, actually, you do. You see that word right there? That means loan. That Perkins word, loan, or whatever it was at that point. And she said, yeah. I said, they have you taking out, $14,000 worth of loans every year. She's like, what? So you have to be involved in that process, because some of the parents don't understand these kind of things. And, some of them do, and that's great. And the more your parents know from the beginning, the better off it's going to be for you. But like I said, the recruiting process is just a monster. Nowhere have I said that you shouldn't let kids do their own highlight tapes and things like that, but you better be reviewing those things. Don't you let a kid send a 15-minute a 15-minute highlight tape out to some college coach, and there's film on there of him, running, 13 yards down the field to tackle a tight end, and it's just, make sure you got the right stuff on there, and make sure that their best clips are up top. Most college guys, I can tell you, at the small school I worked at, we would get 200 emails a day. 200 emails a day of this kid is a great kid, and most of them probably were. And this, take a look at this film, and so you pop the film on, and then you got time to look at three or four plays, and if you don't have them hooked by 3 or 4 plays, then we've got other guys that are gonna be looking at. So this is why the head coach has to be involved. You got to let kids know what they're doing as far as that's concerned. And like I said, I'm pretty sure there's some things I missed, but like I said, I kind of wanted to see how this would go. That's why I tweeted that out last night, and it went about as well as I thought it would. In the comments below, what are some things that I missed? What are some things in the recruiting process that you do? How many of you guys are going to these exposure camps? I've never really had, great experiences of those things, especially, you go to an exposure camp or one of these national camps or whatever, and they're run by high school coaches. And look, I'm a high school coach, but look, I want my kids to be evaluated with guys who can offer. So I'm much more into that one-day college campus. I'm going to go to a place that I like and has been talking to me a little bit. I'm going to go up there and show them I can run and do those things. So in the comments down below, like, what do you do for your kids? What did I miss? I'm sure I missed everything. Something. Like I said, every situation is different, but I really think that if you're just letting parents handle the recruiting piece and you're not doing, anything involved in that, then I really don't think you're doing your job. And it's amazing, because I've had, 200, 300 retweets on this already. And it's, and it's even people from other sports are chiming in, volleyball, girls basketball coach said the same thing. And it's just, you have to take control of that situation. You need to have a process in place. And if you want to be a head coach, these are things that you're going to have to deal with. If you turn your nose up on the recruiting process, I promise you, you were going to be a 3.5-year girlfriend. And on that last half of the year, your senior parents are going to hate you and blame you for everything because you weren't honest with them up front. And listen, there's plenty of people out there that can help you. Most coaches are pretty cool about the recruiting process. Talk to the college guys when they come in. Hey, what are you guys looking for? What aren't you looking for? The one thing I hate is I used to love it when college football was on the PlayStation or whatever, because then I could tell kids, hey, you want to go play to Alabama or whatever, go to the college football game, pull up their roster, and how many of those cats look like you. That's the biggest thing. Take your kids to games. Spring games are pretty cool. If you get a chance to, get them some tickets, let the parents take them up to the games if you don't want to take them, but let them see what D1 athletes look like. And then maybe you'll get a better idea of what's going on. And a lot of this stuff is applicable to all sports, not just football. So like I said, man, if you have any cool ideas that you like to use in your program, I'd love to hear about them down in the comments down below. Once again, man, Air Raid Nation is May 8th and 9th. Really excited about it. We'll have more information on the internet here coming up pretty soon. And as always, spin it to win.